Hello everybody, Heather the Bard here, and today I'd like to talk about ornamentation and Irish music. So, think of Irish music like a soup. So, you have your soup. It's a plain soup. And if you're like most people, you'll like to take a handful of crunched up crackers and croutons and throw them in the soup to kind of spice it up a little bit. So, if Irish music is a soup, ornamentation is the croutons and crackers that you will throw in your soup. If you know how to read music, when you look at a piece of notation, you'll notice that lots of times the players will not play the tune the same, and they will not usually play it exactly as it's written on the page. That is a great example of ornamentation. It's an individual's interpretation of the music you're playing. So in Irish music, there's four main types of ornamentation. The first one is called the tap or the strike. And that is where you pick your note that you want to emphasize. In this case, it's this one. And you stick a note in that's directly below it. So in this case, this is the B, and so we're going to ornament it by coming up from the A right below the B. Now this is the introduction to a very famous slow air called the South Wind, and this is what this will sound like. You hear how I'm just coming up from the A to the B real quick? That's a tap or a strike. Now the next type of ornamentation is called a cut. Traditionally, when you have tied notes like this, they'll be played as one long note. In Irish music, we don't really like to do that, and so we'll insert a note above it to kind of break it up a little bit. The way it was described to me was that we're not too picky about which note above we stick in there, just as long as it's above. So it's kind of up to personal preference. Lots of players will decide that they have a particular fingering that they like to use for it, and then that's the one that they stick with. But this is what this will sound like. Play it again. That's a cut. The next type of ornamentation is called a slide. And it's kind of just exactly like that. You're going from a lower note, sliding up to a higher note. Now on a tin whistle or an Irish flute, this is really easy to do because it's an open hold instrument. So you finger your note, and rather than just lifting your finger, you drag your finger off the hole. And because the action of dragging allows air to slowly escape rather than just escape all at once, it gives the impression of sliding up the scale. That is a really beautiful type of ornamentation to use in slow airs to emphasize the note at the end of the phrase. Now the last type of ornamentation is also one of the harder ones to learn, and it's called a roll. And so we have this nice triplet figure, doot, 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 that's common in Irish music, and we're going to insert a note above and a note below. And what that does is rather than having this triplet that you just play straight, it kind of gives it this lovely little wave or this swoop feel to it. And this is what this will sound like. In order to sound good, rolls need to be played pretty quickly. That can also be kind of an issue depending on where you are at on the scale. Because to do a roll on a C note, that's really kind of difficult to go from C to a D, back to the C, down to the B, where you're lifting. That's where I always get hung up, is from there to there, because that takes time. And so it's really difficult. In that case, you might only choose to stick a cut or a tap or something else in between and just emphasize one of the breaks and then tongue the other one just normally. So, but that kind of gets into a little more of the interpretation of the song. Every player has their own strengths. Every player has their own weaknesses. Some players don't do rolls that well. Other players do them fantastically. And based on that, and based on how you feel the tune should go in your head, kind of gives you a little bit of information on whether you really want to try to cram that roll in there or leave it out and do something else instead. The nice thing about Irish music is it's largely open to interpretation that way. You can choose to add things in and leave things out in terms of ornamentation, however you like, and according to your own strengths to best showcase the tune and your own abilities as a player. So that's kind of the basic introduction to the four main types of ornamentation. I encourage you to learn them all, because just like you wouldn't pack a mechanic's toolbox with one type of wrench and one type of screwdriver and one type of pliers, you want to have as many of these types of ornamentation under your belt as possible so that you can do the best job that you can in the moment. So, thank you very much. Again, I'm Heather the Bard. If you enjoyed this little introduction, consider giving it a like, and send me questions in the comments, and I'll see you around. Thank you very much. I'm Heather the Bard, and that was different types of ornamentation in Irish music. Have a wonderful day.